What's up, YouTube? This is your girl Nicole with The Real Nicole Britt, and welcome to my channel, The Real Nicole Britt TV. Today I'm going to be discussing a topic that I feel that nobody discussed, and that's PTSD. Not only PTSD and regular for anybody, PTSD among single mothers or mothers in general, not necessarily single mothers. And then on top of that, the African American community and anybody that suffers PTSD. I want to talk about mental illness, and one of the big mental illnesses is PTSD. A lot of people think that PTSD is just for war, people that have been in war. But really, PTSD is for post-traumatic stress disorder. That's what PTSD stands for. Is for anybody that has experienced a traumatic situation or something traumatic happened to them in their lives. And the signs of PTSD is you continue to relive. One of the signs is you continue to relive that event. Anxiety. Anybody that I got diagnosed with, I had PTSD, and I had anxiety and panic attacks. Anybody that knows that with PTSD, anxiety and panic attacks normally go hand in hand with it, and it's one of the symptoms of PTSD. And a little bit of story background behind how I got diagnosed, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because God has placed it on my heart to shed light on things that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And I really believe that a lot of people don't want to discuss mental illness. While I said mental wellness, but really hospital term, it's mental illness. But we're going to say mental wellness because you can be cured from it. You can treat it without having to go to the doctor. Background story, how I got diagnosed with PTSD. In 2012, I found out I was pregnant. And what happened was, this was a very different pregnancy, unlike my 3 daughters that I had previously before. I noticed that I was spotting. I was really sick. I was throwing up something like The Exorcist. And for me, what was traumatic is that my other 3 children, I'm not a big type person that throws up or gets really sick. And a lot of you guys say, like, oh, that's common in pregnancy. Not the way I was throwing up. I was like, it seemed like I was throwing up my entire insides. Like, it was shooting out like The Exorcist. It was crazy. And then I was spotting. Now, one of the things, a lot of people say, like, oh, spotting is part of pregnancy. This spotting was really different. And I didn't have any spotting with my previous 3 children, and I know that other age pregnancy is different. But this one was, I don't know, it concerned me. The spotting concerned me. So I went to Loma Linda, and they told me I was pregnant, and but I was concerned about the spotting. And one doctor said, oh, you might miscarry. And another doctor said, oh, don't worry about it, you're fine. And something said, no, this spotting is... I stayed on the doctors because I said something about this spotting is really bad. Like, it concerned me. It didn't sit well in my spirit, the spotting. And so I kept going back to the doctors, and I kept wanting to be checked. And my mother and my ex-husband at the time, they were like, oh, you're stressing out the baby. You're stressing yourself out. There's nothing wrong with this baby. You're going on 2 months. You're going on 3 months. But I really had this spotting, and it just became unbearable. And I didn't care how much I had to pay every other day to get my blood checked, my blood levels checked, to check to make sure that my cervix was still closed. I didn't care. I just was like, I want my baby safe. I want me safe. So I'm going to get this checked. And it became very stressful because I got checked, man, it seemed like every other day for about a month. And when I found out I was pregnant, I was already 2 months. So I was going into 3, almost 4. So one day I was at work, and the blood was more. I've never had a miscarriage, so I didn't know if I'm miscarriaging or what. So I called my husband, but now ex-husband at the time, and I'm like, hey, this blood is getting worse, so I'm gonna go to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they pretty much already knew me at Loma Linda because I was there every other day. And I told them, they kept saying, the regular spell, oh, Miss Williams, you're fine. Go ahead and go home. There's nothing to worry about. Your cervix closed. And so something said, don't leave without an ultrasound. So I said, I'm not leaving without an ultrasound. Like, I'm 3.5 months, going on 4. We should be able to see a baby at this point. They had kind of changed the rules now with these ultrasounds and testing for the heartbeat. Like, you have to be dang near, it seems like 3 or 4 months now before they'll even see you on your first appointment. And so I was like, I'm not leaving without an ultrasound. I'm not leaving. I don't care. I'm almost 4 months anyway. So you got, my first appointment wasn't until a certain particular time. We should be able to see what's going on. Long story short, when I came back from my ultrasound, my tube had ruptured, my fallopian tube had ruptured, and somehow the baby and myself had survived almost 4 months with blood floating around in my stomach, and I didn't die from it. I was just bleeding really slowly. They said my organs in my body was sucking up the blood, so it was just spotting out really slow. And then we couldn't figure out how the baby had survived this long and continued to grow outside of the uterus. But the amount of blood that I had in my body, the doctors wanted to operate immediately because they said I had about 30 minutes to live. And the crazy thing for me was we went from you were just about to send me home to now I'm about to die. Mind you, I had 3 children at home. I wanted a second opinion. Long story short, my ex-husband signed for us to terminate pregnancy and for them to move forward. He overrid me for us to go and remove the baby and things of that nature. That whole ordeal scared the heck out of me. When I woke up, they terminated pregnancy and I could no longer have children. They said it was the craziest, worst thing that they ever seen in my life, and I was completely traumatized when I woke up. The healing process, and I just didn't even feel like whole. They removed so much out of my body. And they were like, you're not going to be able to ever have kids again after that. I didn't really had to go through a lot. A very traumatic, horrible experience. The recovery was very traumatic and horrible. We don't know how, why everything else got tore up on the inside after that, but it was terrible. I got diagnosed with, how I discovered I had PTSD was the doctor said I couldn't have any more children, but a month or 2 later, I ended up getting pregnant with my son, Jason. And I remember I immediately went into fear because I couldn't have any more kids, but here I am pregnant. Here I am now considered high risk. And I just kept thinking the same thing was going to happen to me that happened with my previous pregnancy. I wanted them to take my son out because I didn't want to go through the blood test every other day. I didn't want to go through being poked, and I didn't want to be driving and them say, oh, I'm okay like they did last time, and then I was going to die. One of the signs of PTSD is you keep reliving the trauma. In your mind, you just keep reliving the trauma. That's one of the signs. You keep reliving the trauma. And then for me, you become really depressed. Depression is another sign of PTSD. Another sign of PTSD is anxiety. So that's a 4th sign. Another sign is panic attacks. You start freaking out and hyperventilating and sweating profusely because you're always in this constant fear that something is terrible is going to happen. Your mind tells you something terrible is going to happen. Another thing that I had was I did not accept that I was pregnant again. I walked around like as if with this belly, like it wasn't even there. One of the things that they were worried about was me attaching myself to my son. And I didn't allow myself to get attached to my son because I was afraid of losing something. The previous pregnancy, I wanted so bad. I feel for women who have had miscarriages. I feel for women who've had stillbirth. Because I was traumatized. It took us 3 years, my ex-husband and I, 3 years to get pregnant with that child. That it was a little boy, and I wanted that little boy so bad that I was willing to give my life for him. And I just couldn't I didn't want to get attached to another child that I was going to lose. I couldn't do it. I was in deep depression because I was still grieving the loss of my previous pregnancy. So it didn't really allow me to adapt to my son. And anybody that's ever dealt with any type of mental health issue of any sort, I want you to, 1, get closer to God. 2, go to therapy, go to counseling. I remember them giving me Wellbutrin, Paxton, Zoloft. Those things made me sick, and it actually made my symptoms worse, because then I was seeing and hallucinating. I just had problems that I didn't have prior to taking those pills. I want to tell you guys, don't take anything from these doctors. How can you get over your PTSD? It's very hard, but I do it. I work hard. Exercise, prayer, meditation, lean on your family. Those are the ways that I did it. And I want to encourage anybody that has anxiety, panic attacks, anybody that wants to know, what does anxiety or panic attacks feel like? It feels like a heart attack. It feels like you're really having a heart attack. Your heart is racing. You start sweating profusely. You can't breathe. It just feels like the whole world is caving in on you. Those are real anxiety and panic attacks. And it takes you a minute to pull yourself out of it. Exercise, prayer, meditation, pull yourself together. Sometimes with PTSD, anxiety, and panic attacks, you can't decipher what's reality and what your mind is imagining that's happening. So your mind immediately starts running to the fact that it's all bad. No, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's real and what's false? What's the facts of what's going on? And I want to encourage anybody that has these things, you could do it. You can come out of it. You can beat it. God will help. Again, prayer. People that say that, oh, I have PTSD, I have anxiety, I have panic attacks. They're not joking. That's the most serious thing you can ever have. It's very tough to have. It's very tough to live with, especially when you have depression added to it. Especially with PTSD, they said my condition was worse than a person that's been to the military. I lived in constant fear. And I remember when I got pregnant a second time, I got pregnant again after I had my son. And by that time, I had a lot better control. But I still was considered high risk. I still got taken off because of my history of PTSD, my history of panic attacks and anxiety. My only job was to focus. Then tell yourself what's reality, what's the facts. Treat each situation in your life differently. Don't let them all run together. One of the hardest things about life is, anything that traumatic happens to your life, you automatically revert back to that traumatic experience. So you think the two work hand in hand, and they're not. They're not the same. So I want to encourage anybody that has PTSD, has anxiety, has panic attacks, lean on family, prayer, meditate, fight the big fight, exercise, and any other mental illnesses out there. They are curable. You can treat them, and get the help. It's okay to say you need help. One thing about Black people, don't ever say we need help. It's okay. It's okay. We need help. Some things are really hard to get through. Traumatic experiences are hard to get through. Separate them. Get to the root cause of them. And then just take one step at a time, day by day. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. I hope this inspires someone. I hope this inspires someone to get help. I hope this inspires somebody to spread love. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys have a very blessed day.